I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to our Cafe, where we stay shape, thought find up, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He is the founder of Akoya, an indigenous guided mentorship community in Colombia, none other than Mr. Scottie Schneider. Hey, man. Welcome, Mr. Scottie on Abstract Cafe. Can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure, man. Well, in 20 or 30 seconds or less, I grew up homeschooled on a small farm in North Carolina. Joined the military when I was 17. Went to West Point, which is our nation's military academy. Served 7 years as an Army officer. Froze off a toe and a half in the wilderness in Alaska. Eventually started traveling the world, found my way down here to Colombia, where I fell in love with a wonderful woman here in Medellin and got adopted into an indigenous tribe that she's a part of. And now I'm building a company and community that focuses around helping people heal and learn from indigenous elders and ancestors.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Scottie. Thank you. So today, let's talk about insight is not enough. Why healing experiences don't automatically change your life. So, Mr. Scottie, your life story is a testament to the fact that insight doesn't automatically change your life. You've had near death experience, profound plant medicine journeys, and moments of deep clarity, yet you've also battled depression and alcoholism along after the insight. What do you wish everyone understood about why insight so often fails to create lasting change?
Yeah, brother. Well, I think oftentimes we tend to focus on insight as a solution to everything, right? If we go through Western based therapy, the entire focus is on understanding what's going wrong with us. If we say become fixated on taking ayahuasca, it's because we want to understand something. But what I've learned with the indigenous here is that the real important stuff is how you actually live your life. It's the doing after the insight that matters. And I think that's a really important lesson that I would love more people to be talking about and discussing.
Certainly, Mr. Scotty, you code powerful. I think people can give their own personal agency away. You see veterans
Yeah.
blaming the VA, but you could just as easily see people blaming their childhood, their trauma, their circumstances. How do you help someone reclaim agency without minimizing and what they have been through?
That's a great question, man. Yeah, we
Thank
all
you.
have we all have agency, and the example you used with veterans and the VA is a really important one. People do it with politics. They're irritated with the president in charge or this or that or the other guys. Jordan Peterson was a really big influence on me. Many, many years ago, I watched some of his older college lectures. He was a college lecturer back in the day in a Canadian university. And he's really big on personal accountability and responsibility. And I think that you don't have to minimize what you've been through as a person, trauma, um, things happening, things going wrong. But you do, I think, have to take responsibility for the fact that you have control of your own actions, right? So trauma may affect you and may get you to a point where you think a certain way, but that doesn't mean that it has to control what you do and how you live.
Very well said, Mr. Scotty. You have experienced both conventional success, West Point, entrepreneurship, exit, and deep spiritual work. Which was harder, achieving external success or doing internal work required to actually feel the success?
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, Sorry, could you repeat the question again? Our internet cut out for just half a second.
No worries. So you've experienced both conventional success, West Point,
Hmm.
entrepreneurship, exit, and deep spiritual work. What was harder, achieving the external success or doing the internal work required to actually feel the success?
Yeah. Well, they're both hard for very different reasons. What was hard wasn't achieving the success at West Point, although it was difficult. It wasn't achieving success in various entrepreneurial pursuits, which I did. The hardest part was feeling that I was still empty after I'd gotten those things that other people told me it would make me happy, right? So that was really hard. That was kind of like my breaking point when I'd tried the corporate world and I'd tried the army and I'd tried entrepreneurship and all these things that I had been told would make me successful and happy didn't. Now the internal work, once you start that, never really stops, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be brutal sometimes, it can be sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, but it never really stops. But there does come a point in my experience that you start enjoying it, right? You start enjoying the challenges because you realize that there are opportunities for growth. And when I reached that point, everything in the overall view of things got a lot better, a lot easier.
Mr. Scotty, you describe your journey as one of the identity restructuring. What does the
Hmm.
phrase actually mean? When insight hits, what has to happen in terms of identity for the insight to stick?
Yeah. Well, I think it usually revolves around structure because what we're talking about here is like habits for your life, you know? So if you say get to the insight that you have some father or mother trauma, some family of origin trauma, right? A habit would be catching yourself when you might respond to your mother in a particular way, or you might get angry or irritated at a partner. You can't necessarily blame the trauma, but you could put good habits in place. Another way to really, I think a lot of what the indigenous elders will tell us is that we need to have good habits in our life: diet, sleep, exercise, physical activity, connection with loved ones, those sort of things. That those are the sort of habits and structure that we need in our life. And whenever I find somebody, like even myself, when I was depressed and anxious, is because I didn't have good habits or structure. And that kind of revolves around what we were talking about earlier, which is we really need to take accountability for our own lives. And that I think is the boring part of making ourselves better and making ourselves feel better, the boring part of eating well and sleeping well and treating people well. There was an
Hmm.
indigenous elder of ours that was talking in the group last week about this concept among the Mori tribe in the Amazon, where they talk about walking barefoot, which is the idea of if you walk barefoot in the jungle, you might get bit by a snake or step on a thorn, or twist your ankle or something. And so if you don't have shoes on, you walk very carefully. You place your feet very carefully. Well, if you use that as an analogy for life, we walk very carefully with our actions, with our words, with our thoughts. We're very conscious about it. And that is a way to put that sort of structure in our life that helps us move through without hurting ourselves or others.
You've been deeply involved in plant medicine and psychedelic therapies. This experience can produce profound insight in a matter of hours. What you living proof that the medicine is just the beginning. What is the difference between the insight itself and the integration that must follow?
Yeah. Well, most people feel that ayahuasca is going to heal them overnight, like a magic pill. We're fascinated in the Western culture with magic pills. And that's not necessarily what it does. It might give you a perspective. And of course, I'm speaking from my own perspective, not on behalf of the medicine. But it can give you some insight. But what's really going to heal you is you. You are the medicine, as we say. And what we mean by that is once we understand what we need to do from the medicine, like the medicine says, hey, fix your diet, work on your relationship with your parents, these sort of things, we are responsible for actually doing them. And so that's the difference between insight and action. We have to do something after we get insight. And it doesn't really matter if it's plant medicines or therapy or meditation or church or Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever modality that you choose to use. Without action, insight becomes meaningless.
Certainly, Mr. Scotty. You work primarily with the military veterans, a population that has often experienced profound trauma and equally profound attempts at healing. What is the most
Mhm.
common mistake you see veterans make when they return from healing retreat or ceremony? How does your sabotage their own breakthrough?
Yeah. Well, a lot of us military veterans can sometimes be addicted to our own suffering, right? In the military, we're often taught that the proper solution to pain is to push through it, and that the proper solution to feeling off or feeling bad is to not talk about it. And so, a lot of times, what we do, I think that I've seen in other veterans and myself for sure, is when we get back and we feel vulnerable, we feel open, we feel like something has changed inside of us, we don't share with others. And sharing with others and doing this healing work in community is one of the most important factors that can make this whole process easier. We tend to be isolationists often in the military, especially once we get out and we lose our family and our community, the military. And so that's why in Okoyai, one of the things that we focused on the most is community and doing this together, not alone. That's why you see it up in the banner right there, the third part, like heal in community.
Heal and community for sure. You've spoken about the importance of authenticity and vulnerability in leadership, especially for men and veterans. Why are they qualities so difficult to assess even if someone had healing experience? What blocks them?
Yeah. Well, especially with men, I think vulnerability is one of those things that we're not culturally encouraged to practice, right? If you think of, I don't know, the first time I cried, my dad hit me and told me men don't cry. You know, it's common for women to be seen sharing about their feelings, but it's not common for men to be sharing their feelings, which is one of the reasons why we instituted, in fact, just before this podcast, I got off our weekly men's group. We have a men only group where men can get together and start learning or relearning the essential practices of opening up and being vulnerable about our feelings. We as men we're told to be strong and unshakable and unbreakable. And we think in our minds that if we're vulnerable, we're being shaken or we're weak. Brene Brown is a really wonderful author who wrote a series of books focused on vulnerability and the power of vulnerability, which would be great for any of your listeners that are curious to learn more about that topic to check out. So, with men specifically, I think that that is one of the reasons why we're not as vulnerable as we should be, but that's a lot of where the growth happens.
Growth indeed. You recommend books like 12 Rules of Life and Awaken the Giant Within. These are the practical, almost mechanical appearances and approaches to self improvement. How do you bridge the gap between mystical and mechanical? Which is one is more
Hmm.
important for lasting change?
Well, if you put me up against a wall and made me choose one, I would say the mechanical is more important for lasting change. I think mystical tends more to the insight, which is a lot of people that I talk with in the States tend to be, oh, I'm dealing with the crystals or the energies or the spirits, and that's good. But if you talk to them about their diet and their sleep and their exercise, they're like, what do you mean? I think a lot of times the mechanical, meaning how our body functions and how we treat it, um, doesn't allow us if we don't have good foundations in place, good habits in place, good communities and networks in place. It's very difficult or impossible for us to reach and deal with the magical, if that makes sense. So I would say you could even say one is not more important than the other, but mechanical, if you're referring to the physical bodily processes and the things that we do in life, must come first.
Mm. You founded Walking Warrior as a community and support system for veterans. Why
Mm-hmm.
community? Why not just therapy or just plant medicine or just coaching? Why does community
Mm-hmm.
provide that individual work cannot?
Yeah. Well, a lot of veterans have tried therapy. A lot of them have tried ayahuasca. A lot of them have tried MDMA or EMDR or any number of insight producing or even therapeutical practices. And it's not to say that they don't work. But it is to say that I think what we are lacking is community. A lot of our trauma in the veteran community comes from losing our sense of identity and losing our sense of community. When we're wearing the uniform, well, we know who's to our left and who is to our right, and we know the guys we're with and the guys we're not with, right? But when we leave in the civilian world, that is stripped away from us. And it's a very painful wound that a lot of veterans find it very difficult to recover from. In fact, I know that I took many, many years to recover from that myself. And so we're not for or against any one particular therapy. We are for healing. And there's a variety of different paths for each person, and each person needs to find whatever path fits them best. For where we can come together is in community, which is, hey, you healed through therapy. That's amazing. I healed through AA. That's amazing. I healed through ayahuasca. Great. Well, let's all come together and share what worked for us so that we can help others of our brothers and sisters do the same with whatever works for them.
Very well said, Mr. Scotty. You offer your service entirely free of charge, including guitar course and the service of over 3,000 new students monthly. This is a radical business
Mhm.
model. What led you to that decision, and what you learn about relationship between money, healing, and value?
Yeah, it's a tricky relationship that I'm still learning to walk with. But we decided to give our courses away for free, the vast majority of what we do away for free, because we did not want money to be a impediment or barrier to healing. What we've discovered, and I'm still trying to figure out what the balance between this is, that it is a well-known psychological business and marketing fact that people don't necessarily value what they receive for free. We've got thousands of people in the course, but I send out an email and it's not a whole lot of activity. It's like, what's going on? So I'm currently in talks with my team and with the community to understand how we can best serve people, whether that's through free courses or paid courses or whatever it might be. We're here to help people at whatever gets them there at the end of the day. But I can say that, as you mentioned, we've had many thousands of people go through our courses with some really great results. And at the end of the day, as long as I can keep the lights on and feed my family, that's what I'm really interested in doing.
Mm, indeed. So, Mr. Scotty, you emphasize still stacking and building system rather than
Hmm.
just goals. For someone who's had a breakthrough but doesn't know what to do on Tuesday morning, what is the smallest system they could put into place to protect their inside from fading?
Yeah. Well, start small and start with yourself. The things I listed off early: diet, exercise, sleep. Start with those three, or even one of those three. Usually, if we're anxious or depressed, obviously, this is not speaking for everyone. Sometimes people have genuine chemical imbalances. It's not to certainly disregard trauma either. But typically speaking, if we're depressed or anxious, usually our diet, our sleep, or our exercise is out of whack. So if you have to start somewhere, start small, start with yourself, and start with one of those three. Start eating better, just a little bit at a time. Start sleeping better, or going to bed early, or stop, watching screens late at night, or take a walk. It's very, very simple. And from there, typically speaking, you get a little bit of momentum and you get a little bit closer to your goal, which is being and feeling happy.
Certainly, take a walk, have a relax, and have a Kit Kat. People, you work with the people dealing with anxiety, depression, and PTSD, substance abuse, and suicidal thoughts. When someone is in the dark of a place and they have just had a moment of clarity, what is the most important support they need in the following 48 hours? How do you hold the container for someone in the vulnerable window?
Yeah. Well, they should ideally identify someone, a friend, a partner, a parent that they can go to and be in a safe, protected space that will hold space, in essence, for them. Someone that will care for them. They don't have to worry about anything, and that they can process the things that are coming up. A lot of times, when we're coming out of an intensive ceremony or an intensive session where we gain some insight, our brain needs some time to step back into the real world. And so I would say that having someone identified beforehand is probably the best way to do that.
Mm. You've started and sold companies, worked in sales, designed software, and now dedicated your life to healing veterans. How has your relationship with purpose evolved? And is purpose something you find or something you build?
I think it's something you find and build. I think you can't find it unless you start building stuff and figure out along the way what resonates with you and what doesn't. It's kind of like a sailboat. For anyone that's a sailor, you'll probably know that you can't steer the sailboat if it's not moving through the water. And
Mm.
so I like to use that as an analogy for the idea that we have to be moving in order for purpose to find us and for us to find our purpose. It's a process of constant iteration. And okay, this worked, that didn't. What do I like about this? What do I like about this? What do I not like about this? And so by doing that for many years, I skill stacked. I got good at a variety of things: programming, sales, marketing, expressing myself, writing, those sort of things. And when I finally found what I wanted to do, which was help people heal, I had the abilities to build the entire business myself. I could program the website. I could sell on sales calls. I could write marketing emails. I could write advertisements. So skill stacking is an idea that was coined by Scott Adams. He unfortunately recently passed. He really impacted my life. And the idea comes from a book called How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big by Scott Adams, if you guys want another good read suggestion. So, yeah, I think you build it and you find it, but you can't do it while you're sitting still.
Mm. Very well said, Mr. Scotty. But before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, of course, my book 101 review in sixth season two, comedy 101 in fourth season, and my food 101 in sixth season as well, geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 are in fourth season or fifth season, science 101, sex 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast review 101, motivation 101, spiritual awakening 101, entrepreneurship 101, law 101, mental health 101, coaching 101, and of course Bible verses 101 are my baby podcasts. So please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So Mr. Scotty, you've been homeschooled on a farm by a deeply conservative Christian parents, then went to West Point and become entrepreneur, and moved to Columbia and become a deeply involved in plant medicine. This is a journey across many worlds. Have you integrated different version of yourself, or do some parts of you remain in conflict?
Well, great question. I'm constantly working on integrating myself. There are a lot of blind spots that I have, which is why I've surrounded myself with my wife and my wonderful community and family. I'm constantly figuring out when I have conflicting parts of myself, and I try to resolve them and integrate them as quickly as possible.
Very well said, Mr. Scotty. So can you please invite the listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you want to promote on Africa side?
Absolutely, man. Well, please drop the website in the show notes, but you guys can go to www.ocoyai.com, Okoyai, and feel free to sign up for our courses. We'd love to have you.
As people, let's support Mr. Scotty, because if you support him, for sure more and more empowering courses will rise. So I have one more question, Mr. Scotty. If our listeners take away only one principle for this conversation, one fundamental truth about why insight is enough or is not enough, and what actually creates lasting change.
Yep. The only lasting change is what you demonstrate in your own life. So take responsibility for that and figure out how to improve it one step at a time.
Yes, indeed, people, be responsible and be good citizen of the world. So, Mr. Scotty, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Likewise, more people. See you soon.